There's Paul. Hey, Paul.
Hey,
How are you feeling?
doing good.
Y'all are off quarantine now, right?
Yeah, we're off quarantine.
All right. Where was the first place you went?
Church.
That's good. That's good.
Went to work.
We're just three of us on yet. And Greg, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Greg, meet Paul.
Hey, Paul.
Hello there.
Paul is a pastor of a local Christian church here in Carrollton. Greg and I have been friends for like 152 years.
Wait a minute there. I'm not that old, I don't think.
Long time.
Yeah. Can you hear me, Jim?
I hear you fine.
Okay.
Fine.
How are you too, Lannis?
Hey, I'm good.
Thanks.
All right. I guess we ought to go ahead and get started because I'm on the free version of Zoom, even though Kim has the paid version.
Why are you all over here?
There's somebody else joining. There's Michael.
I guess he's gonna show you that.
All right.
All right.
Thanks.
Morning, Michael.
Morning.
Michael, meet Paul, who says he's iPhone, and then Greg says he's Lannis Davis.
Hey, Michael.
I started to say we got cut off on the Thursday night thing right at 40 minutes, so probably ought to go ahead and run through real quick. I have some kind of introductory stuff at the first that Michael you saw last Saturday. So these first couple of things you saw, but after that I put some pictures in because you were asking about the terrain. I'll do probably 5 or 6 slides before we get started on the discussion. Got to move you guys over to the other side so I can get to my arrow. But this is of course that's Africa down here, Saudi Arabia, Asia, and Europe. And what I wanted to talk about is how strategic of a location Israel is, because Israel is located right there. And if you notice, that's not connected. That's an 18-mile pass it straight right there. And then the Strait of Gibraltar over here is 8 miles. Now you could stand on each side and see each other, but it's really hazardous currents across there and hard to swim. So the only way to get from Africa to Europe and Asia is to go through this corner of Egypt, through the Sinai Peninsula, and through Israel, because there's a gulf that goes up here, so that land is not connected there either. So that a little bit closer in the next one. To get from Africa to Europe, you have to go through here, and Asia, you have to go through here, and then you can't get across here without going into Israel. So that's always been a really strategic location in the world. This is what Abraham's promised land looked like. It's probably 5 times as big as Israel is now. It goes way up here to the Euphrates River. Israel now is this blue line, is the boundary of Israel now. And this yellow line is the boundary at the time of Christ. So it's changed back and forth a lot over history. This is the nations that are around today. There's Lebanon right there to the north. This is Syria. Damascus is here. This little brown area right here is Golan Heights. And when we were there, we went to a lookout on top of a mountain right there in that corner, and you could see Damascus from that mountain. I mean, they're surrounded by people that have wanted to kill them, want to destroy them. Jordan down here, who they have peace with now. The Sinai Peninsula is over here, so they're kind of surrounded. But that's what it looks like today. Michael, you were asking about the terrain. Michael, are you there? Did he go off some? I showed these pictures because he was asking about it last week. Well, anyway, this is driving along the road that's in the Jordan Valley. There you are. I'm glad you came back. This is why I have this picture in here. I have 3 or 4 pictures in here. This is the road along the Jordan Valley, north a little bit, I think, of the Dead Sea. and this is looking over toward the Israeli side. This is all Palestinian area. It's all part of the West Bank, but that's kind of in the valley. It's roughly, well, the Dead Sea is 1,400 feet below sea level. And those hills right there are probably, well, Masada is about 700 feet high, I think, but Jerusalem is at 2,400 feet more or less. So it's 3,800 feet higher at Jerusalem than it is at the Dead Sea. And this is this is on the road going up into the Badlands area toward Jerusalem. And that's Masada. This area right here, we were talking about that a little bit last week. This is the actual Masada Mountain, and that is the footpath to go up there. And if you look at that black line right there, that's for the cable car. That's how we went up on the cable car. We didn't do that. That's a half a day trip to walk up there. And, yeah, the tour groups don't take that much time. They put us on that trolley and send us up there at the top. And this is looking back at the Dead Sea from up on top of Masada. This is the visitor center down here. You see right here, this is one of the Roman encampments. I think there's another one right here. I believe, I can't remember exactly. I did a lesson on this at church one night. I think there were 7 or 9 Roman encampments that are still visible around there. I think the Romans had 15,000 soldiers that laid siege on Masada, and there were maybe 100 Jews up there. It's the last stand they made. And this is me in the Dead Sea, lowest point on Earth, 430 meters below sea level. That's 1,410 feet. Now, we're getting to where we're talking about this week now. The first reading we did last Friday is where this thing started, was Abraham going to bury his wife Sarah at the cave of Machpelah. This is not a picture I took. This is a stock photo I got off the internet, but that is the alleged opening to the cave that they think they identified. And if you watch Corey's little presentation on this, that was on that day, we read it this week. There's been one entry into that cave that anybody knows of, and it was a little girl. I think she said 1948 or something like that. They lowered a little girl down in there with a camera and a flashlight. She took some pictures and brought out a few things that are I think they're in the British Museum now. That probably is the cave of the patriarchs. And this is the church building that's built around it now. Again, these are stock photos. We didn't go there. That's in the Palestinian controlled area. Now, the Palestinians want our money, so they welcome you over there as long as you're not Jewish. If you got an American passport or some European passport, they're good with you being over there. If you're in a tour bus, even if it's Israeli registered tour bus, they want our money. So they don't have a problem with us going in there and seeing all these things. Our tour guide, both of the tour guides were Messianic Jews, and they both were Americans. And they both said when they go across that line, they always leave their Israeli passport at home and just bring their American driver's licenses that they still have, so that I guess they probably have American passports too. So they kind of clear themselves out. They don't want the guys on the Palestinian side to know that they're Israeli citizens and Jewish in particular. They don't particularly like each other. A lot of reasons for that, I guess. I skipped the question there. I started putting these questions on these things. All right, this is our discussion thing. You see what it says in Genesis 23, 1-16. That's where Abraham was negotiating for the cave, and the field where he buried Sarah, and it became the tomb of all the patriarchs. So, easy question there. In our Thursday night discussion, it was too simple, and I had a long answer, but what do you guys see? You wanted to have a bigger discussion maybe of what we had Thursday on what the consequences to humanity's sin is. It's seen in Romans 3:23. Somebody talk.
I'm behind. So
Kevin, were you on here Thursday, weren't you?
Yes.
Okay, well, all right. Well, we talked about the consequence of sin is death.
Yes. I started to say that, but I was trying to give somebody another chance.
Well, yeah, you were here, but that's okay. If nobody talks, you talk, okay? Yeah. So why did Abraham take such care in her burial? That's kind of even if you're behind, Michael, that's okay. I mean, you know that Abraham did went to a lot of effort to buy that cave. And one thing Ryan said that was kind of neat when his presentation about this is that they negotiated. It was not much of a negotiation. The other guy gave him a price and he paid it. And he said that according to the tradition of negotiating in the Middle East, the first offer from the owner is 10 times what they're willing to accept. And he gave that. And I wish I had heard that before I went over there, because we bought things probably that were 5 times what we should have paid for them, just because we thought we were getting a good deal at half price.
Yeah, right.
So, we spent way too much money on souvenirs while we were there.
I think
We didn't know they'd take a tenth of what they were asking.
I was thinking car salesman.
Yeah, it's worse than buying a car here. And I think I understand they negotiate for almost everything. Yeah, there's well. So why did Abraham take such care in her burial? I think it's because he knew she was he believed in the resurrection. He believed in the promise that God made of the resurrection from the dead at the end. So he wanted her to have a known place where he could go find her, I guess. Anybody else? All right. Now, when Genesis 26:11, that's different. Where's my thing? Here. All right. In 26:11, we see where Isaac goes to meet this Abimelech guy, and he tells his wife Rebecca. I get Rebecca and Rachel mixed up. I think Isaac was married to Rebecca, I think. And he tells her to tell the folks that she's his sister. The same thing that Abraham had done it with some other king. Told him that tell people you're my sister so they don't kill me. And it's kind of, we're seeing the beginning of some generational sin here, because he's afraid that they're going to kill him. And I mean, think about that. What was the promise that God had given the family? The stars in the sky and the number of sands on the
Multitudes. Yep.
They were going to become a great nation and have an innumerable amount of descendants. And they were afraid that somebody was going to kill them. And it's really kind of odd, because they trusted God on so many other things. It's just odd that they would not trust him for their life. The next question, and I wanted to show this little map because it lets you know how far things were apart that they were doing in these chapters. If you look right now, we're talking about Jacob and Isaac, and we're getting ready to talk about Jacob and Rachel, Rachel and Leah. They went up here, the harem, and that's where Jacob ran away after he stole the birthright and the blessing from Esau, and he ran away from Esau. He went up here to harem. That's 550 miles. Well, I measured that on Google Earth, straight line. That's 550 miles straight line from down here in Hebron, where they lived, up here to Harem, where Laban lived up there. 550 miles he ran away. That's where all that was going on. But remember, they had the 2 wives and both of them had servants that they gave to Jacob to have kids, and ended up with 12 sons and a whole bunch of daughters too. That we'll talk much about. But and the question is, how did envy ruin Rachel's joy in all that? Remember, what was she jealous about? Everybody, all the other
Her-
were having babies, and she wasn't giving him a son.
Right.
She was barren, and it was eating her up. And the question is how does envy steal our joy today? You know, one of the 10 commandments, thou shalt not covet. Now, the 10 commandments hadn't come about by this time, but there's a reason God told us not to, because it does make us not be thankful for what we have. So, how do you think it's a good way to fight against that kind of jealousy and envy? I wish somebody talked besides me.
Be thankful for what you have.
That's the best one. Yeah. To live in a mode of thankfulness all the time. That's probably the best way to fight it. And we've got plenty of time. We're going to finish up before 40 minutes.
Can you hear me, Jim?
I hear somebody.
Hey, Jim, it's Nick.
Nick, all right.
Yeah, I'm on my phone. I'm in Austin right now.
Okay. Yeah. Did y'all have a safe trip down there?
Yes, and I'm very thankful for the safe travels, because it was quite a trek. We had almost an hour detour reroute in Beaumont. That wasn't fun.
Now, you didn't get snow this time in that area, right? Did they get snow a few days ago?
My host said they did get snow in the past week or so. Yeah,
Yeah, I saw that
a little bit.
That it went way down south there.
Yeah, it did go pretty far south. It did snow in North Louisiana, which they get a little bit every year.
We got a dusting out here. I'm looking out the back window now, and it's there. You can see mostly grass. It looks like nothing on the pavement.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we're almost done. It's okay. I can run through the beginning real quick. You might like some of the pictures at the beginning. Next thing we're going to talk about is where Jacob wrestled with God, saw Jacob's ladder, and then met with Esau. That was in this area right here. If you look in the little box, that's just a little bit north of the Dead Sea here. And so Jacob's ladder and where he wrestled with God and got his hip touched out of socket was right here in this area. And this is a stock picture. That's not one of my pictures. This is what that area looks like now. I think the one I can't say Manheim or whatever is over there, and Peniel is over on the other side. And I don't know what direction they're looking there, so I can't tell you which one it is. I'm guessing they're looking back into Jordan to the east. Because I see
what was the thing about, harming his hip? What was that all about?
What was the reason for that?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Did they want to slow him down? I mean, everybody's walking everywhere. Was that to help him separate from the others?
I have no idea. Paul, are you still on? Do you know anything about that? I only see 4 pictures on here. I was hoping Paul might be there. He might have had some insight on that. Anybody else ever been to a seminary that's talked about that? Because I don't know nothing about that. I don't know.
I don't know. It always made me wonder. Little things like that. So like, what's the reasoning there? I mean, obviously, if your hip is injured, you can't travel fast.
Well, maybe that's one of those things you can talk about. You've got eternity to find out. So maybe we'll find that out someday. I don't know. That is an interesting question.
I read about it, but I don't remember what it said.
Yeah.
That's smart.
Well, here's a map of where Jacob came from up there in Padan Aram, and Esau came from down here. The Edomites were the descendants of Esau, and those folks have not been real friendly to the Jews forever. There's a legend that when the Romans were, well, no, I don't know, it was the Romans or the Babylonians, when one of them was destroying Jerusalem, the Edomites were over on the Mount of Olives, where the picture where you see the most famous picture of the Temple Mount is from the Mount of Olives. And according to this legend, the Edomites were over there on the Mount of Olives cheering them on. I think that was the Babylonians, that they were over there cheering them on when they were destroying Jerusalem. And that if you hear about, everybody knows the story of the Good Samaritan, that some of those Samaritans were mixed up people, because when the Assyrians conquered the northern kingdom of Israel, the Assyrian policy was to displace everybody that they conquered and put other people there. So when they did that, a lot of these Edomites went into Samaria because it's good land. This area up in here is Samaria, around the Dead Sea. And so some of those were Edomites, but they were all mixed up. And so the Edomites have never really, Edomites, Esau's descendants, have never gotten along with the Jews, and that may go on until today. That the Palestinians in the West Bank are not really, they're not necessarily Muslims, not really Arabs. There's some different group that are kind of mixed up, and the Edomites are mixed up into the Palestinians of today that have the West Bank. So, there is, in a sense, they have some claim to that land, and that's been a disputed land since the time of Jacob, when he had those two sons. Everybody points to Ishmael, that kind of was the father of the Arabs, which became Muslims, as being the big problem. But these Palestinians were somewhat descendants of Esau, which was another interfamily feud that was very similar. At least they had the same mother, though. Those two feuds go on today, and the only support really that the Muslims give to the Palestinians is because they don't like the Jews. If the Jews weren't there, the Muslims would be just as adamant about destroying the Palestinians as they would be about destroying the Jews. And so the only reason they support them is because they don't like Jews. And we went over there, and they're a mix of everything. They're a mix of atheists and Christians and Muslims and just everything. It's like going to the United States, except it's not clean. That's a big difference between Israel and the Palestinian area. Is almost everything in Israeli-controlled area is pristine. They work real hard to clean up everything and make it look nice. Palestinian area looks like they don't ever pick up the garbage. They just throw it out there. There's trash everywhere. I mean, I hate to disparage people, but they don't keep their land very clean, personal property wise. But anyway, what happened when Esau met? And we still have 12 minutes, so we're good. What happened when Esau and Jacob met in Genesis 33:1? Remember, Jacob came down. That was the whole point of got off track here. Esau came up. Jacob came down. Jacob knew he was going to meet Esau. He didn't expect that to go good. He didn't expect it to go well. What happened when they met? Remember?
They hugged.
They hugged. That's right. It was a good brotherly meeting, and it kind of shows that. Somebody wanting to say something?
I was going to say it went well.
Yeah. And it kind of shows that a lot of times we harbor ill feelings over years and years and years. And we may think we were right, and we think that the other person is hating us and would want to do harm to us when we meet them, and we avoid them for the rest of our life. But in reality, that person may have forgiven you a long time ago, and that you're the one that's harboring the ill feelings and causing that separation. But the picture we showed before showed um, where this meeting took place, generally where Peniel and the one that started with an M was, and then Jacob went on over here into Shechem. Esau went back here to Edom, so they were kind of separated. And Jacob's family grew in this area over here, including the Jerusalem area, and that Hebron where Abraham started was down here. So it was kind of like in the middle. And Esau and Jacob's families grew on each side of where they started. What parallels do you see between Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and it says Joseph? I see a lot of parallels between Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I have a little more difficulty connecting Joseph to that. What do y'all think about that? We talked about that generational sin earlier. How does the stereotypical Jew look to most people today? I'm not talking about physically. What do we think about them? They're very shrewd businessmen, and shrewd is a good word. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were con men, and I think the difference and the reason I think Joseph was also shrewd, but I think the difference I see between Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is that most of what they did was for themselves, with their own best interest in mind. And Joseph, Kevin, if you're still on here, you remember the other day, somebody came up, I think it might have been Kim, that mentioned there was something about Joseph that was pretty selfish too. But most of the time, it seemed like his best interest was, even though he recognized that he was going to be almost like a king or a prince, that he did look out for the best interest of everybody else most of the time. And that doesn't say, I typoed when I put how on there. How do you see God's faithfulness despite our human nature?
Well, I guess we're forgiven for that. to some degree.
Yeah. That's
Well, I mean, I guess as long as you're faithful, and it is human nature. I mean,
well, I'm not sure that being faithful has a whole lot to do with God's faithfulness, because he followed through, even though Abraham and Isaac in particular had that deal where they had the wives lie about who they were. He still blessed them. I think God's plan goes on despite what we do. We may get ourselves off track, but the track is still there.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way I see it.
But don't you still love, if you have children, don't you love them in spite of what they do?
Yes. Yeah. And you leave the track for them to come back. And I think that's
Right.
That's what God does. The track stays there. You get off the track, you can always come back because he keeps the track there for you. The plan is still there.
But you use the best word, calling them shrewd is truly there. And you're right, as a Jewish people, I mean, they seem to be very adept as business people,
Yeah, that's our stereotype. Yeah.
It's a stereotype. I mean, but it has a basis. It's not an unfair thing. And I mean,
Well, I think
many are very successful, but it's the way they kind of con each other, That's what got me,
Yeah.
But they're not. It's not special to just them.
Well, I don't know if you know or not, but Israel has been a great ally for the United States over the last 50 years, 60 years. That, we come up with all these big machines and give them for defense, military machines, and give them to them to play with, and they improve on them. That I remember the story about in 1971, that the Soviets put a bunch of surface to air missiles along their border in Syria, and we didn't know how to handle those surface to air missiles. We thought they were invulnerable, and Israel attacked them with our F-15s and F-16s or whatever they had at the time, and took every single one of them out. And they invented what a lot of us have in our cars today as part of that operation, a radar detector. And those are radar guided missiles. And as soon as they turned the radar on, they shot the radar. and
Really?
the missiles were flying around, nowhere to go. They didn't know where they were going. And they took every single one of them out and didn't lose any planes to a missile. One of them got shot down because somebody shot it with a rifle.
Oh, wow. You know,
Jim
on that
Bob.
same, go ahead, Michael.
So,
I was gonna-
Jim, I was just going back to that Jacob's hip, you know, the hips where I'm stuck at. And it was Genesis 32, verse 25. It talked about when the man saw that he could not be overpowered, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip so that his hip was braced as he wrestled with the man.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just,
You're like Nick. You kind of wonder why they did that. What was the point of that? We'll have to ask him someday.
yeah.
Yeah. You get that
Hey,
chance.
hey, Jim.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, on that same subject about Israelis making the military equipment better, I can remember reading a story in one of those wars that they won. It was like a 90-0 kill ratio or something
Yeah.
with their airplanes. They said you know, the pilots always need to know what's behind them, and one of the things the Israelis did, they put literally like rear view mirrors in the cockpit so the pilots could look directly. And they said, you know, we decided that small improvement, you know, we said somebody had the idea, so we tried it and it worked, and it improved their efficiency and, you know, avoidance of enemy planes, what have you. They said in the United States, had that idea been implemented, it would have taken, you know, a couple of years to get all the approvals to let that happen.
We're going to get cut off in 2 minutes. We got 40 minutes. I think we're going to get cut off in a couple. So let's try to hurry up real quick. This is 350 miles is what the Ishmaelites took to get Joseph to Egypt. And when Jacob went, he took a different route, 225 miles. Should he have shared his dream in Genesis 37? That's the one where he had two dreams where he saw his brothers and Jacob bowing down to him. Obviously, he got him in a lot of trouble. But Kevin said the other day that if he hadn't told him, we wouldn't have this event in the Bible. He wouldn't have gone to Egypt and been able to save the nation. And so Joseph matured in his over that time. We're going to get cut off real soon here. Change we see in Judah between Genesis 38 and Genesis 43. Genesis 38 is where he went down to, can't remember, maybe went down someplace and got him a wife and got into all this trouble. Ended up with his son's wife as a prostitute, getting her pregnant, or faking being a prostitute, getting her pregnant. And then in Genesis 43, he's the one that's willing to give himself up in exchange for Benjamin when Joseph wanted to keep him as a slave. So what's it tell us of God's conviction? I think we talked about that earlier. He's going to keep the plan going either way, and we can get off the track and get back to it. Now I've got one more slide. I think, this is what we did yesterday, talking about this is where Goshen is. It's in the Nile Delta, which would have been the best land there. How do we see God's bigger plan for Israel in Genesis 41, 1-7? Gave them a place that they could survive the famine, and they flourished. So we got to think about what that does for us. Okay, now we run through all the questions. Somebody want to talk anything about this week that you like or don't like? We're gonna get cut off any second. So somebody
No,
talk.
I just wish I'd read, caught up on my reading this week, but this gives me some stuff to think about.
Did we talk about the apps where you can listen when you're driving and stuff like that?
No,
Nick started doing that. He put, you did Bible.is, right, Nick?
Yes, and it's great.
It plays audio and you can listen, and out of the 14 times I've been through the Bible, probably at least 10 of them were like that. Or maybe, well, not 10, but 7 or 8 of them probably were listening on apps while I was doing something else. So that counts. You just need to focus on the focus reading we do each week. But you need to, if you listen to it while you're doing something else. I wouldn't do it while I was writing a report. Yeah. Then I'll be really hard on you.
Yeah. All right. But this is enjoyable. I'm not behind because I don't like it, but
Well, you can catch up if you use one of those apps. You can catch up pretty easy.
Yeah.
If you drive 2 hours, you can go through a whole week's worth of reading. If you have a 2-hour drive someplace, and you do that a lot, I know.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a good app, Mike. Bible.is. Yeah.
Okay.
Bible is. Yeah. Try it out.
Thank you.
Anybody want to talk about anything else? Nick, Saints are playing this weekend against the Devils.
Oh yeah.
Brees, right?
I got my receipt reserved here at my host house, and he has a wall TV that looks like it's about got a 100-inch screen on it or something.
A big one, huh?
Big one, yeah. But it's going to be the first time 2 40-plus-year-olds meet starting quarterbacks or something like that.
2 old men, huh?
Yeah. Brees turned 42 Friday, and Brady is older than Drew.
Michael, you were showing us your garden there?
I thought my chicken was still eating, but she's run off somewhere. I was gonna show you my chicken.
You got a pet chicken?
You don't live in any town then. You live out far enough away where nobody cares you have chickens?
No, we're in town, but we're allowed to have 3 chickens.
Are you?
We had 3, and the raccoon got 2 of them. We've got the one left.
They won't let us have chickens where we live. We can't have chickens or pigs, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I can see pigs, but I think everybody needs a chicken or 2.
Yeah, my last inspection, they had a whole flock of chickens there. They're fun to watch.
I like the eggs from the chickens.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, me too.
Michael, you need to get you a little donkey. That keeps those predators away. That does keep predators away.
I might. Well, I've got the Georgia house, so